2匹、2頭、2羽、2本、1本、3本。The sound changes. エビデンちゃん Help! あれピザくん、どうしたの？ I don't like Japanese counters. どうして？ There are more than 10 counters that Japanese beginners should learn. I can't remember which one to use for each stuff. 他には？ Well, some counters change their sounds. It feels like it happens randomly. なるほど。Do you have any tips? そうだ。いいこと思いついた。I'll help you solve these struggles you have. 本当？ But how? You'll see. When you count things in Japanese, we use different counter words for different objects. In this video, you can learn 11 common counters and more. This video has 2 parts. In the first half, let's learn what kind of things each counter is used for. It'll be hard to remember 11 counters at once, so I'll make some puns so you can memorize them. In the second half, you can learn the general rules of the sound changes. I divided the 11 counters into 4 groups based on how the sounds change. So if you are struggling with it and want to know how it works, this video will help you. Sounds good? よろしくお願いします。Okay. If you like this video, please like and subscribe because I worked really hard on it. This video will contain silly puns, but please don't hate me. So now let's start with these 2, which are the most common counters. Do you know how to count them? When we count apples, clocks, or bags, we use ko. It can count almost anything, but we have more suitable counters depending on the shapes and characteristics of the objects. So, ko is mainly used for small, non-living things. We count small objects like this: 1個、2個、3個、4個、5個、6個、7個、8個、9個、10個。When we wanna ask how many, we say 何個。You don't say 1個 but 1個。The same goes for 6、8、10. Yes, because 1個 is easier to pronounce than 1個, at least for Japanese people. I'll explain it in the second half if you wanna learn more about the patterns. By the way, as for 10, originally 10個 was correct, but now 10個 is more commonly used. You can use whichever you like. わかった。Great! So now I'll teach you the other counter that is used in similar way to ko, that is つ. This is actually the original Japanese counting system. Before Japanese people learned 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10 from China, people used つ to count things. After they learned 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, both 2 different counting systems have been used. Now let's read them together. 1つ、2つ、3つ、4つ、5つ、6つ、7つ、8つ、9つと How many? いくつ つ counter will be a bit hard to remember, but here are the tips I've heard of. Use the word he, who, me, to remember 一つ、二つ、三つ and coconuts for 9つ. To counter is very useful, so I recommend you remember them. Why is it so useful? Because you can use to counter for the things that counter covers, and you can count abstract things such as questions or ideas. Plus, you can use it when ordering food no matter what kind of shapes the foods have. We also use to counter or counter when we don't know which counter to use or in casual conversations. For example, you can say スマホ3つ持ってる instead of saying スマホ3台持ってる in casual conversations. It's very useful, right? But there is one weak point. We don't count numbers bigger than 10 with this counting system. Actually, in the past, Japanese people used to use it for bigger numbers, but we don't do it anymore. For the numbers bigger than 10, we use 個、11個、12個、13個、20個、100個、1000個. Even for 10, we say 10個 more often than 10. Here is the summary. なるほど。Okay, now let's move on to the third one. To count people, we use 人. But one person and two people are exceptions. We don't say 一人 or 二人, but we say 一人 and 二人。一人、二人、三人、四人、五人、六人、七人、八人、九人、十人。Ninja is counted with 人、人、人。Let's move on to number 4. Do you know how to count them? For flat and thin objects, we use 枚. This is very simple. We just add 枚 after the numbers. 1枚、2枚、3枚、4枚、5枚、6枚、7枚、8枚、9枚、10枚。How many? 何枚？簡単だね。But how can I remember that 枚 is used for flat and thin objects? Well, how about this? Whose shirt is this? Mine. Whose plate is this? Mine. Whose paper is this? Mine. The paper is mine. The paper is mine. Gong. The paper is mine. Don't hate me. Next one. Do you know how to count them? For long and thin objects, we use 本. You might wonder why movie is in this group. It is said that this is because the story from the beginning to the end is seen as a long object. This counter is a little tricky because the sound changes depending on the number. So it goes like this. 1本、2本、3本、4本、5本、6本、7本、8本、9本、10本。How many? 何本？ちょっと難しいな。Don't worry, even if you say 1本, Japanese people will understand what you mean. But if you are interested in it, I'll teach you the patterns of sound changes later. To remember the word 本, let's use the English word home. Knives are honed. Knives are honed. Phew. Knives are honed. We're moving on to number 6. Do Do you know how to count them? For cards, machines, and some furniture, we use 台. This counter is very simple. You just add 台 after the numbers. 1台、2台、3台、4台、5台、6台、7台、8台、9台、10台。How many? 何台？これも簡単だね。But how can I remember it? Well, how about this? I'm dying to get a car. I'm dying to get a car. I'm dying to get a car. We've done half of them, and here is the next one. Do you know how to count them? For small animals, we use 匹. This is a bit tricky, just like home. 匹 can change into 匹 or 匹 depending on the number. It goes like this. 1匹、2匹、3匹、4匹、5匹、6匹、7匹、8匹、9匹、10匹。How many? 何匹？ちょっと難しいね。By the way, did you make a pun for this? Yes. Small animals are picky. Small animals are picky. Yay! Small animals are picky. Let's move on to big animals. Do you know how to count them? For big animals, we use 頭. This is just a rough standard, but we use 匹 for animals smaller than humans and 頭 for animals larger than humans. We count them like this. 1頭、2頭、3頭、4頭、5頭、6頭、7頭、8頭、9頭、10頭。How many? 何頭？Do you want a pun? Okay. かまぼこちゃん has small toes, but big animals have big toes. Big animals have big toes. ガーン Big animals have big toes. Next one is birds. Do you know how to count them? For birds and rabbits, we use わ. Why are rabbits in this group? This is because people thought rabbits' long ears looked like birds' feathers. わ counter is simple. You just need to add わ to the numbers. 1羽、2羽、3羽、4羽、5羽、6羽、7羽、8羽、9羽、10羽。How many? 何羽? There is another way to count, but 羽 is more commonly used nowadays. Well, here is the pun. You drink coffee, but what do birds drink? Birds drink water. Birds drink water. Gang! Birds drink water. Let's move on to number 10. Do you know how to count them? For books, we use 冊. It goes like this. 1冊、2冊、3冊、4冊、5冊、6冊、7冊、8冊、9冊、10冊。How many? 何冊? I came up with a pun. I'm ready. I sat and read books. I sat and read books. Yay, yay! I sat and read books. This is the last one. Do you know how to count them? For a cup or glass of drink or a bowl of food, we use はい. And depending on the number, はい can change into 杯 or 杯。1杯、2杯、3杯、4杯、5杯、6杯、7杯、8杯、9杯、10杯。How many? 何倍。これも難しいね。So how can I remember high? Okay, how about this? A cup of coffee is high in caffeine. A cup of coffee is high in caffeine. Phew! A cup of coffee is high in caffeine. Now we've done all the counters. ところで、私のダジャレはどうだった？That was quite unforgettable. レベル2 Let's learn the general rules of the sound changes. As I said earlier, even if you say 1個 instead of 1個, Japanese people will understand what you mean, so you don't need to worry about it too much. But if you want to master it for exams or jobs, or you are just interested in it, let's find out how the sounds change. I divided the 11 counters we've just learned into 4 groups based on how the sound changes. First, let's see the simplest group, which is no sound changes group. The counters in this group start with the letters that can't be added 10, I mean little dashes, or the counters that already have 10, like dai. So if you can't add 10 to the first letter of the counter word, there'll be no sound changes. おー、これは簡単だね。Now let's see the sound changes groups. It has 2 types. The counters in this orange group start with the letter ha, hi, fu, he, ho, or hya, hyu, hyo. How about this pink group? The counters in this group start with the letter ka, ki, ku, ke, ko, sa, shi, su, se, so, ta, chi, tsu, te, to, or cha, kyu, kyo, sha, shu, sho, cha, chu, cho. All of these letters can be added 10. If you can add 10 to the first letter of the counter words, there'll be sound changes. へー。Let's see how the sounds change. It'll be pretty complicated. You don't need to memorize it, so please just relax and watch it. On 1, 6, 8, and 10, the last letters of the numbers can change into small z. As for this pink group, you don't need to change the sound of the counter words most of the time. For example, こ、1個、6個、8個、10個. But here are some exceptions. For example, 階, which means floor. The third floor is 3階. How about this orange group? This is a bit tricky. The sound of the first letter of the counter words can change into P or B sound. For example, 匹、1匹、3匹、6匹、8匹、10匹。本、1本、3本、6本、8本、10本。はい、1杯、3杯、6杯、8杯、10杯。But 分 which means minute goes like this. 1分、3分、6分、8分、10分。3 minutes is not 3分. Actually, the B pattern is more rare, but it has essential counters you should know. These are not perfect rules, but just general patterns. But I hope you are getting the hang of it. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. 見てくれてありがとう。またね。